Thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to thank this youthful team for putting this organization together. I think they deserve another round of applause. It's interesting. I usually get asked to speak about motivation and inspiration and the struggle I had to try and make my first film, City of Life. But when they called me, they said they would like me to speak about home and what home means to me, and also I will expand upon identity and who I believe that I am. What I find interesting is that home could be many things. Home, to some people, is the passport they hold, or where they're from, their citizenship. To some people, home is where their family are. To some people, home is where they're born. And also, home could also be the place that built you and made you the person you are today. Now, before I continue, just out of curiosity, really, with a raise of hands, and I'm trying to see all of you, how many people have seen City of Life? Okay, quite a lot of you, and those who haven't, and those of you who want to see it in better quality, the Blu-ray is out, and you can find it. Well, basically, I'd like to start off by saying that I was born in London, right, in 1981, to a British mother and an Emirati father. And to be exact, I was born in the Queen Mary's Roehampton Hospital. It was very close to where my mother grew up, in Putney. And as you see, there's an image right there, which could feel very random, but as a creative and someone who's a Libra and has slight ADD, I started to procrastinate last night when I was Googling images. And I found that in 1981, there was this iconic film that came out called The American Werewolf in London. Now, some of you might be too young to know that that film won the Oscar for Best Makeup. And the guy who made that film was John Landis. John Landis is a huge inspiration for me. He's an iconic filmmaker with films, legendary films such as Coming to America, Trading Places, Animal House, and one of my favorites, Three Amigos. Again, this is very random indeed, and I'm going to probably, a bit later, tell you why I put his picture up there. Now, I was born in London, but I was raised in Dubai. Now, this is a picture of the beautiful skyline that we have now. It's not the same picture that I put up on my laptop, it's a little bit unclear. But, as you can see, a lot has changed from the place that I grew up in. Now, this is Sheikh Zayed Road, almost the exact frame that the other picture would take it. And growing up in Dubai with a British mother, the product of a mixed marriage, it wasn't confusing at all, and to some people it might have been. Now the thing is, growing up in Dubai, I started off speaking English at home because of my mother. But I was raised culturally as an Arab. And from this picture, really, I did not look like an Arab whatsoever until this day. So a lot of people might think that might have been a little bit of a struggle for me growing up. But that only started at my younger years in school, where, you know, obviously in your youth, you had people that might have teased you and said, oh, he's the English guy, and so forth. But that all changed for me very quickly. I managed to learn Arabic through my friends, and I was very quickly seen as an Emirati. Now, talking about me being an Emirati, and the passion that I had as an Emirati was film. I very quickly, if I want to flash forward my life until the days of now, is that I became a filmmaker. And I became a filmmaker that truly wanted to inspire this industry, or at least help build this film industry. And I wanted to make a first feature film. But I didn't want to make any feature film. I wanted to make a feature film that could really hold out in the West. And this was during the same time that the foreign media, and also the British press would bash Dubai. There was a lot of Dubai bashing going on. And you know, some of the things that they would say is that Dubai was soulless, Dubai was fake, it was artificial, and it was Disneylandish. Now, it was very hard for someone who grew up there to hear that your home, the place you grew up in, was soulless. And I'm sure a lot of expats and foreigners that grew up here felt the same. So I wanted to try and make a film that could fight against that. And what film to make than a film about a city that I knew best. And that film was Dubai. Now, City of Life was a huge struggle. And I obviously do not have the time here to talk about all the trials and tribulations that I had to try and make this film. But I just want to talk to you about the journey that I had briefly. And that was in the early stages of when I tried to raise the funds to make this film, and the passion that I had as an Emirati to make this film. Now this film, I would, you know, I mean, in terms of the meetings and going and trying to raise the money for this movie, I would go up there sometimes in my national dress, sometimes dressed the way I am right now. And no one saw me at that time as someone who was not fully Emirati, because of the passion that I had of what I wanted to try and do and help build this industry here. So the only struggle really that I can talk about right now that I have time for is when I would go to the National Media Council. Now the National Media Council is based in Abu Dhabi, and it's a place where you have to go and secure the permission really on your script, so you're able to go ahead and shoot it. I would appeal to try and get this film made for 6.5 months of driving back and forth to Abu Dhabi and spending a lot of money on gas. And eventually what happened, and what I heard, is that some of the reasons that they thought that it was hard for me is because they said, Ali, if a foreigner came ahead and wanted to make the same film, they probably would have got it approved immediately. But the fact is that I was Emirati, said that everything I was saying in that film was true. Now, at the end of the day, City of Life wasn't a very controversial film. It was a film talking about the realities in Dubai that I knew best. But hearing what they said, you know, made it more impactful for me to understand is that they took me completely as a UAE national, and which is the person that I believe I am today, and you know, and who I am going to continue to be, is someone who represents the United Arab Emirates. So, going ahead, I'm going to fast forward now that City of Life was made. We had a screening at the Dubai International Film Festival, the Arabian Nights Gala. It was the first Emirati film to go into an Arabian Nights Gala. It was a very successful screening. We had about 1,300 people attend that screening. You know, the press had a lot of good things to say about the film. And then eventually, when the film went into the cinemas, we were only on 12 screens. And believe it or not, our opening weekend was at the same time that Iron Man 2 and Clash of the Titans were opening. Those two films, each, were on 56 screens. And what I can tell you is that City of Life, and I'm very lucky to be able to say this, that it was second in the box office in the United Arab Emirates, even though we were up against the summer blockbusters. The fact is that that film also had a record-breaking run for an Emirati film and lasted 9 weeks in the cinema. My point is that we managed to make something that was very important and that really helped the industry that we have today. And I did that again as a UAE national. But what's funny is that after that it all happened, there was an article that had come out. And the reason this article had come out is because there was someone in a high position that said, mixed marriages for UAE nationals are wrong. They're wrong in the sense that the parents are very likely to end in divorce, leading their child in a state of depression and crime, and unable to contribute to society. Now, a very dear friend, Sheikh Sultan Saud al-Qasimi, who is a commentator on Arab affairs and a legend on Twitter, decided to write this article, Mixed Marriages Bring Strength Upon Strength to the UAE. I was very lucky enough to have been mentioned in that article as a UAE national who's a product of a mixed marriage, to have been able to change the face of the film industry in the United Arab Emirates. And not only that, there were other people that were mentioned, and very important people that were mentioned, that not a lot of you are aware of. Yusuf al-Adeba, the product of a mixed marriage, is the ambassador to the UAE in Washington, D.C. Umar Ghabash, product of a mixed marriage, is the ambassador to Moscow and the UAE. Very important people. And he would end with every person, are they not Emirati enough? Khaldun al-Mubarak, one of the most important people in Abu Dhabi, the CEO of Mubarak. And if any of you are football fans, he's also the chairman of Manchester City. Also, the product of a mixed marriage, is he not Emirati enough? A peer of mine, Nawaf al-Janah, who's also a pioneer in the film industry here, who made the film Sea Shadow, product of a mixed marriage, is he not Emirati enough? So it was really funny that I started off my childhood, you know, at a very young age, where a couple of people would pick on me. Eventually that ended. And then for us to come so far, to have someone say what they said. Now, I am Emirati through and through. But I must never forget that I'm also very proud of my British roots. At the end of the day, my mother she made me who I am today. She is everything to me. Her family is everything to me. And she is my rock. And eventually, out of the success of what happened with City of Light, I started to notice in the papers, whether it be the local papers, they would refer to me as the Emirati filmmaker Ali Mostafa. But in the foreign press, and mainly in the British press, they would refer to me as the British Emirati filmmaker Ali Mostafa. Which at the end of the day is true, and I'm proud of both. And those things, you know, there's a lot of blessing that really came out of those things. I managed to represent quite a lot of brands through the success of my film. Even British brands such as Alfred Dunhill and to this day, Range Rover, Land Rover. And so it was almost something that affected me when I was a child, grew out of, and then somehow managed to hear it in my adult years again. Now, the question is, are we not Emirati enough? We are absolutely Emirati enough. And I've also been very lucky enough to have been asked by the British government to become the UAE Goodwill Ambassador for Visit Britain. And that is a very proud thing for me to do. And I have a clip here which I'm going to show you just to give you an idea of this project that we worked on together. And yeah, here it is.
I'm Ali Mostafa and I'm an Emirati filmmaker. I consider Britain to be a second home. And right here in Windsor, by the Thames, is where I have some of my fondest childhood memories. The great thing about this area as a filmmaker is that we're close to one of the coolest places on earth. Let me take you. Pinewood Studios has held some of the world's biggest productions, the Harry Potters, the Batmans, and the legendary James Bond films. It's a dream of mine for Pinewood to one day host one of my films. Thank you. Location is key for my short visits when I come to London. So staying at the Mayfair is perfect for me because it's smack in the heart of the city. As a storyteller, I like to imagine stories about people that I see on the street. I find Seoul to be one of the most colorful places in London. And this spot right here in Bar Italia serve some of the best roasted coffees in town. Another source for inspiration is a visit to the Magma bookstore in Covent Garden. Here on Langley Street at the London Film School is where I spent the most exciting 2 years of my life. Let me show you. Some of the most renowned filmmakers of our generation have graduated from this film school, and I feel absolutely privileged to have studied here myself. Cheers. One of the best kept secrets in Shoreditch has to be the Scooter Shop's organic pizza. Saves you from having to travel to Naples. Being a member of the British Film Institute gives you exclusive access to their amazing programs and screenings. Thank you. And if you're looking for a great art film to take home, you're definitely going to find it here. What I showed you was some of the things that I truly love about Britain. And if you want to see more, I highly recommend that you come see for yourself. Because as always, you're invited.
Excuse the fact that it's out of sync and the quality of the film, but I just thought I'd like to show you some of the stuff that I end up doing when I'm not busy making films, and which I'm very proud to do as well. Basically, I had spoken to you earlier, and this was again, the fact is that I was procrastinating last night, Googling images on what I should talk about, and I came across an American werewolf in London still, and thought of John Landis. And I thought it was very interesting is that recently I had asked to give a talk about the film industry at Comic-Con, which I also, by the way, directed their first commercial. And what I found very interesting is that the guy, you see on the bottom, the guy on the right of me, on the left here, is Max Landis, John Landis' son. And being someone that I highly respect, John Landis, I've always wanted to find an opportunity that I could meet him one day and tell him how much respect I have for him. The second best thing that happened is that I got to sit next to his son and say it publicly, on stage, in the amount of respect that I had for his father, which he was very appreciative of, and said that he would pass on that message to his father. Again, this is completely off topic and very random, but I just thought I should mention it. The thing is, I would like to end this really and talk about what I feel and believe home is to me. I mentioned before that home, to some people, is the passport they hold. Home, to some people, is where their family are. Home, to some people, is where they were born. But to me, home is a place that made you the person who you are today. And that home for me, and I feel for many of you here, is the United Arab Emirates. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of it.